8:55 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present the nightly broadcast of Elmer Davis and the news.
After the withdrawal of British forces from southern Norway, the Germans are continuing the mopping up of such Norwegian detachments as are still in the field. The small force that occupied Røros yesterday morning fell back today as German bombers attacked it and reinforced German troops moved back into the Öster Valley. And it seems unlikely that Norwegian resistance south of Trondheim can continue much longer. Along with their other successes today, the Germans finally opened the railroad from Oslo to Bergen after fighting their way through a tunnel 3 miles long. Of the various reports as to the whereabouts of King Haakon and the Norwegian government, the most probable is the statement of a Norwegian spokesman in Stockholm that they sailed from Molde, presumably with the last of the British forces, for some point in northern Norway. This and the fact that the British troops who got out of Andalsnes were apparently transferred to the Namsos area bears out the British statement that the Norwegian campaign now enters a new phase, presumably a closing in on Narvik and perhaps an attack on Trondheim from the north. Now that the Germans will be able to push in steady streams of reinforcements, the chances of success in such an operation do not seem too bright. And it is a little difficult to see how Mr. Chamberlain could tell the House of Commons today that he was satisfied that the balance of advantage up to the present lies with the Allies, or how a subsequent British statement could say that the objective of the first phase of the campaign had been attained. The German losses were undoubtedly heavy, both in warships and in men drowned in torpedoed transports or killed and wounded in land operations. But the British objective was presumably to keep them from establishing themselves in southern Norway, and from that point of view, the campaign was a total failure. Mr. Chamberlain said that the British battle fleet had put out to sea on Sunday, April 7th, after receiving information that large German naval forces were coming out, but he failed to explain why the British, with their great naval superiority, were unable to prevent the German landings at half a dozen points on Tuesday the 9th. Neutral experts feel there must have been a very poor cooperation between British air and naval forces to permit the Germans to get the jump on them. Once the Germans had occupied the Norwegian ports at first in very light force, they might still have been driven out the first day or two by resolute naval action if the British had been willing to risk the loss of some of their capital ships, in which at present they have a superiority of 14-2. But they risked only one at Narvik, not the most important point. It may be that the first German air attack on the British fleet on Tuesday the 9th inflicted a great deal more damage than the British have admitted. Mr. Chamberlain today, acknowledging the loss of only a few small vessels, said that 5 warships had been damaged. He didn't say what kind of warships or how badly damaged. But at any rate that day, Tuesday, April 9th, seems to have been the best chance the British had to stop the German invasion, and they failed to do it. That was also the day in which British submarines, perhaps supported by destroyers, sank several German transports in the Kattegat. But after that, the Germans got their air bases established on both sides of the straits and managed to get a continual stream of reinforcements through. Not apparently without heavy losses, but they were willing to incur losses of both ships and men to gain an important strategic advantage, which the Allies do not seem to have been. One reason why the Allies were so cautious about risking their capital ships is suggested by the passage in Mr. Chamberlain's statement in the House of Commons that the German naval losses had now made it possible to transfer some Allied naval forces to the Mediterranean and that an Anglo-French battle fleet is on its way to Alexandria. This is evidence of the apprehension stirred up by the recent Italian press attacks on the Allies and of the many signs indicating that Italy was about to go into the war. Mussolini hasn't gone in yet, but if his activity made the Allies unwilling to take the chances they would have had to take to stop Hitler in Norway while there was still time, Italy has rendered a very valuable service to her Axis ally. Reports from Belgrade tonight said that Italy had expressed disapproval of recent Yugoslav defense measures, and while this is unconfirmed, it may hint at a possible Axis offensive in the Balkans and may explain the peculiar broadcast of the British radio to Romania, declaring that the Allies had great armies in the Near East and would be able to smash any Balkan adventure that Hitler might undertake. Mr. Chamberlain referred to the suspicion of the Allied general staffs that the Norwegian campaign was only a diversion to distract Allied forces while the Germans struck elsewhere, but the Nazis have been able to capitalize on their successes.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.